Right, students, now we're in part 3 for support tutorial 7, the last section for the theory of the firm, and this deals with costs. We have to analyze our costs, we have to understand them, we have to describe them, we have to calculate them, and then we have to use them. Let's take a look. Because we've got fixed and variable inputs in the short run, we will also have fixed and variable costs. Your total fixed cost, you must be able to describe and then also be able to calculate. So it is a cost that remains constant in the short run no matter what quantity is produced. It's also called overheads, and it will commonly be known as TFC. Please note as well that even if you produce nothing, you will still have a total fixed cost in your organization. Your total variable cost changes as your output changes. You need to remember this. Therefore, if you produce nothing, your total variable cost will be 0. It will then increase as you produce more. Total cost will be a combination of these two. So your total cost will be your total fixed cost plus your total variable cost. Now we move on to your unit costs. Average cost and marginal cost. Let's take a look. Here are your formulae. Ladies and gents, you'll notice here that I have not put descriptions, but you do need to be able to describe what is average total cost, what is average fixed cost, average variable cost, and marginal cost. Marginal cost I'm going to do for you now. It is the addition to total cost as I produce one more unit. These costs are going to be important for learning unit 8 and 9, so definitely worth putting in the effort right now to understand them all. We're going to use these formula now to calculate or to complete a table. So please take a picture of them or write them down if you have got them if you've got a piece of paper close by. Let's go and use them to complete a table. Here's your table. You need to be able to use those formula, but we're going to discuss for a moment or two where would be your starting position. So your starting position will be with these total costs. You could start with average total cost because you have your total cost and you have your quantities. Remember, your total product is your Q, but what is much safer is to start with your total costs. In order to do that, you have to work out what is my total fixed cost. Now, when you are looking at a table like this, where your total product starts with 0, this is your Q, so this is my quantity. So my total quantity starts with 0, but interestingly it shows that I have a total cost. That total cost has to be my total fixed cost. So here we go. We fill that in here. So that is 100. And now what's nice about that is it's 100 all the way through. And there's a mark there for you. So at least one mark, maybe even more, being able to identify that my total fixed cost is the same all the way through. So I would continue with that all the way down. I now know what my TFC is. I also know that TFC plus TVC is equal to TC. So what I have in front of me now is the possibility of completing my total variable cost. My total fixed cost plus what will give me 100? Well, in this case, plus 0. So my total variable cost when I produce nothing will be 0. Then I want to know when I produce 1 unit, what is my total variable cost? Well, 160 minus 100 is going to give me my 60. And then we continue, 200 minus 100, 228 minus 100, 260 minus 100, and you're now able to complete all of your total costs. Once you've done that, then you can go and apply your formulae and you will be able to calculate your unit costs. Notice the word unit here, because these are all unit costs and are super important when it comes to understanding what to do in your business. Because if you understand your unit costs, you can then decide whether producing one more unit is actually viable. We're going to take a look at the solutions now, so please pause if you're busy doing your calculations, and then we're going to discuss in a little bit more detail. Here we go. Here are our solutions. There you see your 100 all the way down for your fixed costs. You see your total variable costs. And then make sure that you've calculated each of your unit costs accurately. The one that is most likely going to give you the most trouble is your marginal cost. And that is simply because of that delta, that change. So your change in total cost, so change in TC, just got to be patient when I'm doing this because it's a bit slow, divided by your change in Q, and that would give you your marginal cost. Going to have a look at our change. Initially, you'll notice here that I've got dashes, and that is because you would be dividing by naught. Your change in Q is naught, from naught to naught is naught, and therefore it will come up as undefined. That is how we illustrate or represent undefined. Let's go and have a look. 0 to 1, the change in Q is 1. From 1 to 2, it's 1. From 2 to 3, it's 1. So I can see that all the way through, my change in quantity is equal to 1. It is not always the case, ladies and gents, so be careful. Always check it. And your examples in the textbook, your table in the textbook, you will see that your quantity is not, your change in quantity is not equal to 1. So it makes for a good practice with something that your delta Q is not equal to 1. Now I go to my total cost column and I say, what is the change from 100 to 160? And you can tell me it's 60. 60 divided by 1 is 60. Then I say, what is the change from 160 to 200? And it is 40. And from 200 to 228, 28. I'm hoping that by now you are getting the idea of what it means when we say delta for quantity and delta for total cost. All right. Once you've got that, then this becomes super, super easy. You can be given tables that are a little bit more challenging, so just watch out for that. But hopefully you'll deal with those in your class. Now, those unit costs that you've calculated, you must be able to represent them in a table, in a graph, rather. That was our table. Now we need to go to a graph. So we need to be able to show, what does our AFC curve look like? And make sure you can tell me why. What does our AVC look like? Can you tell me why? What does our average cost curve look like? Can you tell me why? And then what does our marginal cost curve look like? Can you tell me why? Super important, ladies and gents. They love this question in the final exam. Make sure you know the positioning of each of these curves and why they look like they do. All right, I'm sure your lecturer will go through it with you. Also very important to notice that the marginal cost curve will intersect the average total cost curve and the average variable cost curve at their respective minimum points. All right, so it'll be at their minimum points. Please notice that. Pay attention to it, both in terms of your drawing your graph and from a theoretical perspective. We're now going to end off with an example that is not completing the table, but rather doing calculations that are in the form of a number sum, so to speak. Let's take a look. Here we go. A firm records the following unit costs when it produces 220 units. The average fixed cost is 12 Rand per unit. The average variable cost is 25 Rand per unit. You are required to work out the total cost of producing 220 units, the average cost when producing 220 units, and then the marginal cost of the last unit if the average cost of producing 219 units is 36 Rand. So here we are asking for you to work out the marginal cost of the 220th unit. I'm going to go on to the solutions now, so please pause at this point, take some time to work these out, and then let's take a look at the solutions. Here we are. First one, there's two different ways to work it out. I've just chosen the total. So total cost is equal to total fixed cost plus total variable cost. So that's what we've calculated here. Here is my total fixed cost. I've gone and calculated it by taking my average fixed cost times my quantity, and here is my total variable cost. If you are given averages and you know how many people those averages are distributed amongst, you can work out the total. So make sure that you get that you can understand it. In the case of the average cost, that's fairly obvious. You just take your total cost and divide it by your quantity, apply your formula. The challenge, ladies and gents, will come in with this one, which is calculating your marginal cost. Please, I ask you to try it. If you're struggling with it, take it to your lecturer and potentially ask them if they can assist you. All right. That is the end of this tutorial, support tutorial number 7 in total now. Good luck until next time.